Did you know that Italy has a long tradition of driving on the left side of the road? This video is about how Italy went from left to right over a period of several centuries, and sometimes did both at the same time. Let's start with the ancient Romans who, although we don't know for sure, we believe drove on the left. This is based on archaeological evidence to do with the depth of wheel ruts on Roman roads in certain directions, and carvings which suggest Roman soldiers marched on the left. It's also thought it makes more sense for right-handed people to hold their sword or reins on the side of the oncoming traffic. Whether Roman traffic rules prevailed through what used to be called the Dark Ages is doubtful, but in 1300 Pope Boniface VIII issued an edict to pilgrims for the Jubilee in Rome to stay to the left, otherwise there would be chaos on the city's narrow streets and bridges. It appears likely that Italy, along with other European countries therefore, generally passed on the left. This changed with the French Revolution and a desire to reject the old Catholic ways, which saw the French Republic decide to pass on the right, and, as Napoleon invaded much of Italy, his Italian territories went from left to right too. With slow-moving traffic and very little street furniture or road markings, it probably wasn't a big deal to change sides. After the fall of Napoleon, Lombardy and the Veneto came under Austrian rule, and they went back to passing on the left, but other parts of Italy continued to pass on the right. You would have thought this mixed approach would change with Italian unification and a single state, but it didn't. King Victor Emmanuel maintained the status quo, which meant that some areas of the Kingdom of Italy passed on the left and others on the right. It's strange to see, but if you look closely at photos of Milan in the early 1900s, you can see that traffic appears to be passing on the left. In 1901, at last, the Italian state got round to doing something and issued a decree. But in the typically indecisive manner of the Savoy regime, this authorised the provinces to decide for themselves. And what's more, this allowed the provinces to have different rules for cities and rural areas. So in Milan, you would drive on the left, but elsewhere in Lombardy, you might drive on the right. I'm beginning to understand why Italian drivers seem to have less respect for traffic rules. This chaos couldn't last in the age of faster motorised transport, and the decree of 1901 was even blamed for some of Italy's failings in the First World War, with mobilisation slowed and soldiers killed in frequent accidents. The impact of the First World War on Italy is often underplayed in other countries, especially those involved in the horrors of trench warfare on the Western Front, but it was as terrible in Italy, which was locked in combat with Austria. Although Italy emerged on the winning side, 600,000 Italians had been killed, and it had highlighted many of the failings of the pre-war political system. This contributed to the rise of fascism, and you can probably guess who sorted out the mess on Italian roads. In 1923, so within the first year of fascist rule, a new decree was issued by Mussolini that Italy would drive on the right. In Rome, this took effect in October 1924, with Milan being the last to change on the 3rd of August 1926, probably because it took longer to make the change in a city with an extensive tram network. Milan even had the first traffic light in Italy in 1925. Italian car makers were quick to adapt, and steering wheels were moved to the left. But Lancia, usually innovative with its engineering, retained right-hand drive until after the Second World War. This was probably because it was safer for the driver to be able to get out of the car on the side of the pavement. Mussolini was less successful when it came to regulating pedestrians, and his attempt to introduce one-way pavements in some of the main thoroughfares of Rome was a failure. Perhaps that's one thing that could be introduced successfully in Italy today, especially in somewhere like Venice. I hope you found this video interesting. Please do like and subscribe, and there'll be another video about something Italian along shortly.